And we are live. So thank you, everybody. And we are back for another construction technology webinar. The panel here today is Dynamite, and I can't wait to just dive into this conversation. So I'll kick us off with some intros, and let's first start out with David. Why don't you give us a quick overview of your background and introduce yourself to the group?
Hey, Aaron and panel. Thanks for including me on today's discussion. I run the go-to-market motion for Track3D AI, a reality intelligence platform. I have about 30 years of experience in the industry, and over those years, I've seen a boatload of software from plans on microfilm, project data on a data bulletin board, plans on CDs, the promise of BIM models, internet plan rooms, connected platforms, digital twins. But of all the shiny objects we've chased, today's discussion is really, I really believe in where we are with AI. And I think the next few years are actually going to shape the next 100 for our industry. So I look forward to hearing what everybody has to contribute today. And thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Big topic. We'll touch on it for sure. Let's go next to Chris.
Sure. Good morning. I'm Chris Araujo, Innovation Executive with BNBuilders. We are a mid-sized general contractor. We have about 7 offices up and down the West Coast. I have roughly 20 years of experience in the construction industry. I like to refer to myself as an informed adopter. Construction isn't the fastest industry when it comes to adopting new tech, but my job is to show my teams and our clients where they can benefit and find value in implementing some of the really awesome tools that we have out there today.
Awesome. And then next on my screen as I go around, let's go to Kayla.
Hey everybody, I'm Kayla Coffman Adams. I lead the digital solutions team at Saint-Gobain within the R&D arm of their building materials. Saint-Gobain is the world's largest building material producer based out of France. I've been here for about a year and a half, and prior to that, I've been in the AEC industry for about 10 years. I really like to focus on the practicality of implementing AI tools and what it means from a data point of view, what is actually possible, and how accurate we can get these things to prove out where we need human intervention on some of those components. So that's where I sort of take my lens on AI and innovation in general. And yeah, looking forward to the chat today.
Thanks, Kayla. All right, so next up is Josh.
Hey, Aaron. Joshua Jackson. My background, I'm a former NASA engineer. I worked with Weyerhaeuser as a safety manager. I ran the entire Southeast Forum. And I'm the quintessential guy who walked on a job site and should have known how to be safe and still almost got killed on the job. And so I'm the CEO of Safety EHD. We've created technology that helps us identify risk before someone gets hurt. And really excited to talk to you and talk to the team about where AI is taking us from us getting paid for knowledge to getting paid for what we do with the knowledge that we have. So I'm excited to join the call.
Great stuff. And then last but certainly not least, Rick.
Thanks, Aaron. I'm Rick Kennedy. I'm one of the original team that built Nialli from basically from the ground up as a subsidiary. We spun it off from another company. I've been in the tech business since the introduction of the Apple II, if those of you who were alive at that point, so a few years ago. I've been involved in construction now for roughly 20 years, and the last 6 of which has been with Nialli. Nialli is laser focused on the coordination amongst all of the different team members who are involved in bringing a project in on time. So.
Okay. All right. So I just love this panel because we have, I feel like, so many different and great perspectives on tech innovation and different areas of focus in the industry. So with that, and this is open to anyone who wants to jump in and take it, what are the top maybe 3 trends, let's say, that you've seen in construction tech? Of course, we know AI, but maybe going a little bit deeper, and then maybe some other things that you've noticed in the industry over the past few years.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things that we've seen and really is part of our DNA is the capture of data. And when we started in the space that we're in, Data was not even considered, and yet the value of the data has been phenomenal, and our customers recognize that. Now we do. We've become essentially a data company. And this is what's leading the journey towards the utilization of data for analytics using tools like Power BI. And that's just really a precursor to the AI. And AI has happened so fast. Has
Mhm.
taken it by storm. So
Well, and I think from my perspective as well, the data still has always been that answer to the question, at least when it comes down to construction projects, is where are we? Right? Whether we're early pre-con and we're waiting on materials, whether we're in the design and the estimating phase, or we're worried about schedule and risk, or we're asset turnover, everybody wants to know where we are. So I think, Rick, right on top of your point is the data and the reality of that data is really the critical piece that I think will compel usage of AI as well, because then that allows you to bring that data into whatever end system you want. You mentioned BI, but I mean, it could be any of the solutions that are out there. I'd be interested, Josh, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I agree with both Rick and David. So, talking about data, I've been in AI ever since 2005. So, I was fighting the nightmare of linking data back in the day to build models, right?
Sure.
And one of the things that we've really seen accelerate over the past 2 to 3 years is the ease of data capture, right, through multimodal systems, which could be photos, videos, audio, those types of things, right, that makes it easier to capture data. But the second thing that I'm also seeing, and I'm sure, David, you've seen it as well, it's the unstructured data that we're actually automating and structuring it. What does that mean for the casual user? It means you take a photo and the system understands what categories you're looking for, the data you're looking for, and it maps it all together so that it's meaningful when you use it in the future. And that's a big thing that we're seeing in the space
Josh, I need to get you one of the Track 3D hats. I think you gave out our value proposition in that one. Let me make sure we
right
record
now.
that
Extra
one.
large, extra
Yeah,
large. I got a
absolutely.
big head.
Just jumping in really quick since I see quite a few people popping onto the session. Good to see you all. Thanks for joining. Just know that you can engage with our panelists here. So please do leave a question or a comment or your thoughts on the topics that we're discussing into the chat, and we can bring that into the conversation. So know that this is not just a one-way conversation. Please do share any questions. As well as, engage with the expertise that we have here because it's fantastic.
Hey, Aaron, can I ask Kayla? Kayla, you
Ooh.
work in innovation. What are
Mhm.
you seeing? As you see, Saint-Gobain's data capture, data usage, what are some of the things that you're seeing from your side of the fence?
Yeah. So what I'm seeing is the push to use that data in a way that is meaningful, but not a true understanding of how to do that and what it means to get there, right? So a big part of the work that we're doing is systems architecture, right? How do we connect all these different systems so the data combined is more meaningful than the data being separate, right? And so that's something that when people are really excited about new technologies, it's hard to be like, can you just wait a second and let's do this one really basic thing and it'll set you up for success, right? In the long run, set you up for all those cool AI things that you're hearing about, right? One thing that we're focusing on is using vision systems, right, for quality control in the manufacturing space. And some of our products and some of our systems are massive in scale, like 30 feet by 18 feet, right? So how do you get the right focal length, the right aperture, the right lighting set up in a big warehouse that isn't even necessarily connected to the internet to be able to capture the data in the photos and automate the quality control, right? Counting those tiny nail heads, being able to see if the insulation is packed appropriately, right? And so that's what we're really focusing on is that sort of abnormal use case where we're not creating widgets, but we're creating sort of custom one-off things that are large in scale. And how do we still tap into the power of that data and vision and AI to do so?
And Kayla, are you looking more toward like an MCP or a Claude, or we used to hear API, API,
Yeah.
API, but now
Yeah.
I'm not hearing as much of that. I'm not hearing as much of let's get a systems integrator. I'm hearing more of let me have that data so I can structure it
Mhm.
along the lines of what you're saying. What are your thoughts around there?
Yeah. So it took a lot of convincing, but the recommendation and where we're going now is to go with a Snowflake data warehouse. approach, right? So we're not just doing plug and play,
Right.
many different connections, right? Let's get a really comprehensive view of all the tools in one spot, and then
Hmm.
we can again pull that data out for within Power BI, et cetera, to be able to get
Sure.
those insights. Again, that was a tough sell, right? Let's stop some of this more interesting implementations and work on this. But I think in the long run, it's going to be really successful for those folks that we're doing it for.
Yeah, that long-term view is so
Yeah.
important, especially when it comes to data infrastructure
Yes.
and capability. I think what I see too is, a lot of organizations being really excited about all these capabilities, and then they realize, oh man, we should have been doing this data
This.
stuff years
Exactly.
ago to prep for
Yes.
it. Um,
This,
I want to ask Chris, with your background, I know, starting with VDC and like expanding to your role with BNB, you guys just hosted somewhat recently, an amazing robotics event. How does like data and your experience from seeing the evolution of how it affects the field and 3D technologies and all of that, what's your perspective on how data is like influencing that?
I have two thoughts actually. I'm loving this conversation because it raises the question for me. Obviously, I'm the end user here, right? So everybody at this panel is essentially developing tools that ultimately I'm going to have to present to my project teams or to my clients as something that's beneficial for them. So listening to all of you talk about how you develop those tools, I think it's really interesting for me because I grow a little bit more in my understanding of what it is that you're doing and maybe my confidence in what you're doing. We always have the question of how are you analyzing the information that's being captured when you're discussing reality capture, and how do we know that that's accurate, right? I have to trust that you understand what you're doing in that space, and that's important for me because that does sort of feed into all of the other new technology that we're adopting right now, which, Aaron, like you just mentioned, robotics is a really huge piece of that. So a lot of the robotic technology that's out there is autonomous now. That's what we're pushing toward, is autonomous robotics. And it relies on its own data capture and its knowledge of what it's seeing and its accuracy in what it's seeing to be able to understand spatially where it is and the work that it needs to perform. But we have seen some really amazing, and you saw that I had a drilling robot hosted in our office just a few months ago, a fully autonomous drilling robot. It knows exactly where to drill based on points that are marked out. And some of them are even more intelligent than that. They're fed CAD data and they know where to go, and then they just drill exactly where the CAD data says to go. I think that's probably the most exciting piece of the conversation that we're having for me, is seeing where AI is taking us in this intelligent, it's not replacing workers, but it's working alongside the individuals who are, performing the tasks that otherwise would be maybe very time consuming or a little bit, physically strenuous, that sort of thing. That's kind of where I get excited about this space.
Well, and
Or
Chris, you make a
unsafe.
good point.
Ooh,
Go ahead, Kayla.
exciting topic. Let's let's go Kayla and then David.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just going to add, Chris, like the value there that you mentioned, right? Tedious or, not great conditions for working, but also like the safety factor of it all. If you can take the human aspect out of it and allow a robot to do it and trust that it can do it autonomously, I think that's a big win for the job site, right? To really increase the safety factor. So I love that sort of thought process there.
Yeah,
And
it's a
and
huge. Oh,
and
sorry. Go ahead,
and,
David.
piggybacking on that, right, Kayla? I mean, I think I read yesterday 1.36 billion in venture funding on robotics. I mean, it's turned the corner. Zakua Ventures, Hilti Ventures, they're no longer pilot technology. These are repeatable and in production, right? And I mean, it's more than just the equipment, right? It's the organizations who are pulling better EBITDA from leveraging it, and then they're actually able to put those folks. It's not so much replacing, at least from my perspective, as I'm out on the job sites. It's not necessarily replacing those folks in the field. It's putting them into other portions that they can even be more value,
Hmm.
right? To your point. So again, I'm excited by robotics equally.
Yeah, with the labor shortage too ongoing, there's a huge gap to kind of close there. So tech is one of the ways that we can do that. Absolutely. So let's shift gears just a tiny bit, or maybe go a bit deeper. I want to get into how AI specifically is impacting project workflows, use cases, and then also tacking onto that, what should organizations be asking and doing to set them up for success when they're looking at these AI solutions? Like, how should they evaluate it? What are good practices? What should they avoid? So let's get into that piece of the conversation a little bit deeper. Any thoughts?
So one of the things that we've encountered is we don't know what we don't know. And
Hmm.
one of the things on the AI journey that we're running into, first of all, is I think David mentioned the human interaction and is sort of tracking how people work together and focusing in not just on the work and whether the work was done or not done and on schedule, but also in terms of how the teams are actually working together. Can you evaluate if you understand exactly how they're functioning within that team and coordinating the workflow? So I think in terms of the actual workflow itself, getting into beyond just the sort of the basic data, but there's so much we don't know. And so this is where working with customers directly actually helps you to identify because they know, we collectively know, but individually we don't. And I think that's the collaboration is absolutely critical.
Yeah, that's a good insight. Collectively, we have the insight, but alone, not
Yeah.
so much. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Rick. Good nugget of information there.
I think what's really interesting and what my team is really focuses on is how we can use AI models to learn information from plans and from drawings, right? And there's going to be huge value in that if it's accurate. So, for example, doing a takeoff
Mm.
or doing a feasibility assessment, right? Understanding sort of that front end pre-con side of things. But what I think would benefit a lot of people, and it's something that we're sort of diving into now, is the type of plans and the level of details on those plans that will then get more accurate results from AI models. So, for example, we're wanting to do feasibility assessments, right? Using using automation, using AI, using vision systems. It's just not quite there yet in terms of taking measurements off of PDFs, right? You need very specific types of drawings. You need IFC files, you need DWG, you need raster, right? In order to glean that information appropriately using these models. And I think understanding what your sort of intake process is in all of that and sort of how you evaluate whether it would be appropriate for AI is a great starting point, right? Because the assumption is that we can feed, any plans into it and it'll work, but the level of accuracy is going to decrease really heavily, depending on the level of integrity of those plans and drawings.
You both just raised a really interesting question for me, which is, Rick, you talked about the necessity for finding collaborators, and Kayla, I think you kind of just alluded to the same thing because in order for AI to learn, you have to be able to feed it information, and that's coming from somewhere. How are you finding clients or customers who are willing to collaborate with you and make your product better while understanding that it may actually cost them a little extra time and effort to help you improve that product?
So one of the things that we've done is to focus on identifying individual customers that have a little bit of vision in terms of where this could go. And then we also provide a hypothesis or a seed where we can actually give them some information. Here's some of the things that are possible. What do you think? And then all of a sudden they just take off from there. And we learn from that. We couldn't do it without them, to be blunt. So
Yeah, that's a huge education effort, Rick.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's very significant.
And we're
Um,
finding with our relationship with Zero RFI, very similar from the owner's rep standpoint, right? The owners don't want to get SaaSed solution to death, right? Right? They don't.
Obsessed.
They don't want to get SaaS, right? They want the data so that they can do the things that Kayla and Rick and Chris are talking about, right? How do we use it? How do we interact our data with other data spots? Candidly, for me, I really landed luckily with Track3D, and that having that reality allows us to go ahead and allow the client to have that flexibility to use the data whichever way they want. And we try and stay invisible in that play, right? Get that reality of where are we, and to Rick's point, on budget, on schedule, and what's the progress. but getting that out in the hands of folks who can then manipulate it in their data lake or in their
Yeah.
own kind of comfort to then say, let us build it the way we want. And then, for me, we get to stay out of it. But companies like Zero, they come in and look to say, hey, don't worry about what the tools are. Let's worry about what the outcome is. Right. And
Yeah.
then that way we can go ahead and we'll take on the burden of the back end AI. You don't have to, or the risk. I'm wondering if you guys are seeing any of that out in the field or any of the point solutions coming. You say, hey, here's our output, do what you want, or are they still trying to connect you? Because a lot of times over the years, right, we always said silo data, silo data, silo data. You got to put it in a platform. AI came in and wiped all of that out in about 30 seconds because now we're saying throw a data layer or a layer over the top of any of those solutions. Now you can stay best in breed, keep in your
Mhm.
landscape, and then just try and find how you pull that data out. To Rick's point, how do you collaborate on that data from those different solutions to get the outcome? I'd really be interested to hear what everybody's thoughts are on how that's kind of shifting. And Aaron, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to throw my question in. This is your panel, but I'm just,
No, all good. I love it. This is the whole point. Yeah, get the conversation going.
So I think integrations, David, going back to what you were saying, integrations are going to be key, right?
Mhm.
That data layer over the top, application layer, right, can talk to multiple data sets, multiple areas. I think what we'll see, over the next 2, 3, 5 years, Aaron, you said something earlier. You said, how do we make good decisions when evaluating AI products? Well, number one, there is a lot of AI snake oil out there, right? So make sure you have your IT teams or you have some type of system where you can look at something and ask the right questions. A chatbot could just be an API to Chat GPT, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is going back to those applications. I think what you're going to see in the industry is form factors are going to change. You're going to see organizations get hyper focused on very niche areas that they're going to get extremely good at. And what you're going to see is cross-platform communication between those systems, right? So like safety EHD, for instance, we're focused on real-time workplace safety before the task, not when the report comes out, not 5 weeks down the road, right at the moment of doing a task. Well, I need insurance information and incident investigation information to pull in so then I can build predictive models. Well, I don't want to build a giant actuary for an insurance group. So I'm going to work with those organizations to pull that data in. Another thing is we have body cameras, right? That do automated inspections and pull that information in, correlate it, and all that kind of stuff. Well, I don't need my body cameras if you've got drones, if you've got security systems. Now you can start plugging those data feeds into a very specific AI model that is purpose built to answer a very specific question. And Kayla, going back to what you said, where do you apply this, right? Organizations, before you go into the AI, a lot of CEOs will say, AI is the fix for everything. We're going to throw AI at it. That's not the right approach. The right approach is, what is the use case?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a lot of knowledge that's in that use case? And are there patterns that the AI can identify? If it's yes, yes, and yes, AI will absolutely work in that particular use case. So you got to think through those things before you say AI will fix it. You got to think through, are there patterns? Is there knowledge that's available? And can that pattern be identified in the AI? So those are kind of how I was thinking. But David, going back to what you said, absolutely. I see integration as the future. And I also see form factors will change from robotics to humanoids to drones. But these brains that we're building in each one of these sectors are going to be critical so that those pieces of form factors function appropriately.
My team, we support businesses in selecting the appropriate software,
Good for
right, to
you.
implement.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is, do they have open APIs? Do they have
Yeah.
MCPs? And that's sometimes a deal breaker, right?
Yeah.
And so I think when building these tools, that's something really important for folks to keep in mind.
A lot of
Well, and
head
Kayla, it's
nods.
funny you mentioned that because we've been doing big MCP stuff for the past 6 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting to the point now to where do we even need, BI tools, right?
Right.
Because now today, the way that we're packaging data that's captured from the field, and we call them JSON-B packets for anybody who's technical, but package them in those. I don't need a query system anymore. I don't need that big business intelligence tool. Now all I need is a chat bot that says, hey, look at the past 6 months, tell me what's going on.
That's right.
So
Going
jumping
to
in here super quick. A few more people popped on, and someone is saying hi in the chat. So hello. Uh, you can absolutely ask us some questions, share your comments or your thoughts on the topics going on. So we do want to hear from you. There's a ton of expertise that is here to tap into. So please do use that chat box to engage. And thank you for those that are saying hi. So good to have you here. And then back to, I think, Josh, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but
You're good.
get right back into it.
No, that was everything. I just had one other data point to share, just from a practitioner standpoint, right? And that one of the questions you asked was, how is it improving project workflows? Take one example. Kayla, if I were to say, hey, go do a safety inspection at one of your plants, you're gonna spend 4 hours doing that safety inspection, and that is the only thing you're gonna do. And also, it's going to have your bias associated with it, which is your historical context, right? So if you've ever been ran over by a forklift or close to getting run over by a forklift, you're going to look at forklifts all the time, right? Just like me, I had a wall fall on me, so I look at walls all the time.
Yep.
I think what you're going to see with improving project workflows today, I can capture over 4,000 safety signals in less than 3 hours through photos. A photo will give me more than a piece of paper will ever give me. So I can do 100 times more in less amount of time while the person's actually getting the job done instead of solely focusing on safety. I can also alert in real time to critical events that are happening around them so that a truck doesn't run over them while they're not looking, right? Human-machine interaction. And the final piece is, from a safety standpoint in the real world, automating that data capture, automating the analysis of that data capture, recommending things to the human so that they can see which ones are applicable all in real time, while at the same time, you open an issue that needs to be fixed. Well, now I can look at the data captured, where it's captured, and the corrective actions and go, hey, this photo solves that problem that you have open on this project, and automate that closure with the human in the loop to approve it. So you see how that's starting to get really compressed now, where we used to spend a lot of administrative work. Now we can point that human being to interactions and mitigation. That's where the value is. Not the knowledge of what's right and wrong, but how do I fix it?
Well, and Chris, I'd be interested to hear your perspective, right? Given that there's a boatload of point solutions, I'm sure, given how technology forward you are, how does your field adopt for that workflow? When we start saying, hey, these tools help with the workflow, how does BN go about, just consideration of the supers and the foremen and the folks who are in that reality space, and you're asking them to leverage that. How do you message that out, or how do you do that from a workflow standpoint from your perspective? We all have, or at least my side, I always have it coming to you with something that we think is better, right? And again, having steel-toed it, I can walk the walk a little bit, right? But from your perspective, how do you guys manage that? Because there's got to be a boatload for you to look at every day.
It's a great question. And the answer is yes, there is a boatload. So I would say the number one email that I get these days from vendors is talking about an AI solution. And when you're comparing one against the other, there are 5 vendors that are trying to offer you the exact same type of product. It just works in a different way. And so for us, it becomes a question of, well, which one will be most beneficial for me on my project? And a lot of times that's just having a conversation with your project team about what their needs, their struggles are, what they think could function better on their job. And honestly, for me, it's building a rapport. So I have to have great relationships with my PMs, with my field side, my superintendents, because ultimately they're the end user. So if the product doesn't work for them, then it doesn't work for me. So in my role, it's my job to evaluate all 5 of those exact same tool that I'll, get endless emails on a daily basis to see which one is probably the most beneficial for my field teams based on the feedback they're giving me about their job sites. And then say to them, hey, I think I have something that you could implement that might offer you some value. And then, if they're interested, we'll put up a pilot program for that particular tool, and then we'll report that out to the rest of the company as sort of a lesson learned. This is a tool that we used. Internally in our group, I think things are a little bit different because we handle BIM and VDC and all of the stuff related to that side of our industry. And so for us, it's easy for us to be adopters. We know exactly what sort of tools
What you're
we
looking
want,
for.
and we'll go ahead and adopt those, right? But as a company, B&B, one of the things that we've done recently that it kind of fits really nicely into this conversation about AI is we've developed an AI committee. And so it's not just one person making decisions in a vacuum. It's not just IT who doesn't necessarily understand what the user needs are, but understands how to implement whatever the users are deciding they need. It's a whole group of people across the company with different needs and different roles and different positions who all get together and say, this is what we're looking at. These are the ideas that we have. What are the tools that can actually help us accomplish this?
So much better. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, and again, just like you, right? I've been around the block. And how many times do we all say, oh, well, let's run a pilot? And the fact that your folks don't want to see another pilot, I'm glad that you have a team that kind of pre-selects pilots. Because I tell them all the time, and they think it's me as a vendor, oh, they don't want to give us a pilot. Why? Why would I want to train? Why would I want to take your resources out of the field who are already on time and on budget to pilot a system that you haven't vetted out well enough yet, only to go ahead and say that's not the one, and then have to do it again with the one you do select? So the fact that the folks out in the field are weary of the wrappers, like you said, there's a boatload of slurg around AI, but it's so refreshing to hear somebody who says, "Hey, we're looking at it first from their perspective before we even consider even a pilot," right? Because we're sometimes I hear that all the time, and it just shakes me sometimes because then we haven't really determined what the outcome is yet if we're truly still piloting, right? We should want to know what that answer is. We should want to know where it is. So I commend you for having a team that looks at that prior to then, I mean, saying do a pilot, but not, just, oh yeah, let's try the new shiny object pilot.
Exactly. I
Really, really
think,
good for BNB.
yeah, you can't tell an end user what their needs are, right? Because they already know. And I think, Joshua, you can attest to this, especially because of the tool that you've developed. We've been doing things a certain way. Everybody will say this. I've done it this way for 30 years. Why am I going to change? Right. And in construction, I think that's really important to take into consideration because the reason they're saying that is because that's what drives safety on our jobs. That's what gets people home at the end of the day is what we've done for the last 30 years is keeping people safe. I'm afraid to adopt something that might compromise that.
Gonna
So
add risk.
And
Yeah.
add
always
risk.
have, yeah, you always
Exactly.
have to listen to that end user because if they're saying to you, I'm afraid to adopt this, there are reasons for that. And we have to take those into consideration.
I always say that one of the most underrated skills in the industry are listening skills.
Mhm.
And it's so fascinating to me how like that active listening skill and then following up on that to, take that feedback and make it actionable.
Mm.
That's what is really driving true tech adoption. It's surfacing what's actually valuable. It's making things sticky. So just an observation there that I like to point out. It's yeah, really keying in. And Chris, you said it best, like that relationship, the good relationship with all of your end users, right? So that really moves things forward more than we might think.
I think
You
Um,
know, Aaron,
I,
something I've
yeah.
seen, and I don't know if the panel has seen this as well, that I am thoroughly enjoying in the tech space. I've been in the tech space since 2000. In the 2000s, we didn't have industry people in the tech space. We had tech bros in the tech space, right? And so one of the things that I love that has started really, really going faster over the past 5 years is construction experts are going into the tech space and building technology for construction. Safety experts are going into safety, building products for safety in XYZ sector. And so, just some advice to companies that are looking at it, ask the people that you're talking to who you're sitting across from evaluating their solution how much experience they have in your space. And if they don't have experience in your space, you really need to take a step back and say, do they know my space? Right. And so I've seen from my side of the fence, that is extremely important as a starting point of evaluating technology.
Josh, as you're speaking there, there's a whole bunch of like heart emojis and support emojis and clapping emojis. So, yeah, no questions, but lots of engagement with the emojis. So, thank you all for appreciating that. And I do want to say we're moving towards the last maybe 10 minutes or so of the discussion. I know it flies by. So, I do want to go around one more time. Oh, we have a heck yeah, we are. Thank you, Codex. Haha. Okay. All right. Some positive vibes there. So as we get towards the end of the discussion, I want to ask each panelist here, so where do you see the next 3 to 5 years with construction technology, and especially in the light of, the rapid pace and evolution of AI? And then also, so two parts. So that forward-looking question, and then also if anybody wants to get in touch, where can they find you, or what's the best place to connect with you? So let's go around again, and I'll start with David.
Yeah, I think the next 3 to 5, as I said, very excited by it. And Josh is right. Any litmus test in my 30 years is, would the folks in the trailer want that solution, right? Would they trust the people who are behind that solution, right? That's how you know. And I think what we're definitely going to see, and we're starting to see, we're going to see the consolidation of that landscape of the tool
Yeah.
sprawl where everybody had all of these different things. I think we're going to start to see that. I think we're already seeing it with some of the acquisitions that we're seeing already there. I think I'm seeing trade contractors are actually driving robotic adoption. It's not the GCs
Mhm.
pushing it. So I'm seeing active trade, folks are doing. I'm looking forward to seeing that again, led by some of the equity-backed folks that I mentioned earlier. I think those are things that we're really going to see. I think we'll see some robotics feeding that model to our earlier points, right? So for me, I'm really watching for more of outcomes-based solutioning is what we're going to start to see, not feature-based, not I've got a one-off best in class, while those things may exist. I think it's truly going to be outcomes-based pricing. And if anybody wants to continue that conversation to follow what you asked, you can, David Swider at LinkedIn. Any of you know me on this panel, you pick up the phone. If you can fog a mirror, I'm happy to talk about where are we taking the industry. So I appreciate everybody bearing with me today, but really excited about that consolidation and seeing what the next 2 to 3 years is really going to bring.
Yeah, good stuff, David. Let's go next to Chris. What are your thoughts, and where can people connect with you?
I think what I'd love to see over the next 3 years or so is two things actually. So, the first obviously is AI tools. I'd love to see companies maybe shift focus from trying to grab onto AI as a buzzword and actually show
Mhm.
me how the product is performing a task. A lot of the things that come to me that claim to use AI because they think it's going to catch my attention are actually using algorithms, and
Nice.
things are, very simply built out, right? And so I understand that as a person who works in the space that I do, and I get that a lot of people maybe see AI and they think, oh, this might be great. But really show me how that product is going to work, right? Like I need something that's effective because I can't bring it to my project teams unless it's effective. Um, the other piece is on the robotics side. David, I think you really hit the nail on the head. It's our trades that are going to drive a lot of the robotics adoption that we have on our job sites. And I mean, one of the ones that comes to mind is a company called Hard Hat. They are creating a robot that is specifically for electrical subs, and it helps to eliminate risk for people who are in high risk situations or performing high risk activities. Electricity, obviously it kills. So I think one of the things that I would love to see more of is the implementation of tools that keep people safe. Because robotics, they're not supposed to replace people, they're supposed to help people. And one of the best ways that we can do that is by making sure that our job sites are safe. Uh, as far as connecting with me is concerned, same thing. Chris Araujo on LinkedIn. That's a very easy way to get in touch with me. Fortunately, my last name is a bit more unique, so there aren't too many of us on LinkedIn. So hit me up.
All right. Thanks, Chris. And then we'll move on next to Kayla.
So I think, and what I'd like to see, quite frankly, is a push for more technologists on site and within the back office, right? So we're rolling out all these new tools. How do we make them maintainable, sustainable, and sort of for the long haul, right? We don't want to keep rolling out new tools, rolling them off, because that just becomes such a headache for the end users, right? So how do we get people trained up on using them, on maintaining them, making them self-serviceable? And I think we're going to see a bigger push for that at university and in the training levels as well. Yeah. Yeah. Kayla Coffman on LinkedIn. So Find me there.
Perfect. Yeah. Self-serviceable. That
Mhm.
yeah, it's needed. We'll see
I
where it
agree.
goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then moving on to Josh.
Wow, everyone said wonderful things. It's so hard to compress what's going to happen. I'm going to try to keep it just in my sector on this one. I think we're going to move from a knowledge-based economy to an action-based economy. You're no longer going to get paid for what you know. You're going to get paid for what you do with what you know. And as AI continues to proliferate, we're going to start seeing AI regulations come in, which hopefully gets rid of some of the AI snake oil that's out there, right? That's nothing more than an API to ChatGPT.
Hmm.
Um, and so I see the space from a safety standpoint. Guys, we're killing 5,000 people every year. That's three 9/11 events every year. We've been doing it for 20 years. The systems we have don't work. I see us making a massive impact to the workforce of the United States with allowing people to come home safe. And we're going to move things to real time, in the moment, action oriented intelligence that tells a worker, don't touch this, it'll kill you. You don't have the controls in place. Talk to your manager before he touches that fuse box, right? And so that's where I see us going. I see safety going down into the workforce at the worker level. I see the site safety managers, project safety managers, corporate safety managers, global safety managers getting recommendations and alerts and notifications that drive action. Not just drive action, but they also approve it for application in their environment. Where you can reach me, I'm on LinkedIn. My name is Joshua Jackson. I am not that actor from Dawson's Creek known as Pace. I'm bald. He's not. You can reach me on LinkedIn or just go to safetyehd.com. You'll find a way to get a hold of us.
I thought I was with a celebrity this whole time.
Hey, AT&T still thinks I'm him.
To me, you're all celebrities of the construction
Oh,
tech
there it
Oh,
is.
industry.
That's the win.
And then, Rick, why don't you share some of your thoughts and close us out for
sure.
today?
I've got a few thoughts. I just basically what everybody who's been talking about in this last round, honestly, like I've got something to say for each one of them, but bottom line is one of the critical things is site adoption and getting folks to actually use technology. And we talked about being SaaSed. Well, being SaaSed is, that's something that organizations are trying to avoid. So getting to good adoption on the site. If you were to ask trades on a job site trailer, do you want to learn a new piece of software today? What is their reaction going to be? Okay, we all know that. And so how can we make it so that it's just part of their workflow? They don't actually have to learn anything new. So that's part of it. But it's in terms of AI, and I think it was Chris mentioned, thoughtful AI essentially, and I think that is absolutely critical. We were slow getting into the AI space specifically because we're actually working with customers and asking, what do you need? What could we do to be helpful? What insights would you like to see? How would you like to be able to chat with your data? So, those are some of the questions. So I think there's and AI certainly is in terms of the next 3 to 5 years, fundamental. Um, Rick Kennedy, I can be reached at LinkedIn or rickkennedy@nialli.com.
Awesome. Well, wow. I think I need to re-listen to this and then just digest every little tidbit. So lots of good thoughts in this conversation. So thank you all so much for lending your time, your experience, your knowledge with us today. We do have maybe just a minute or so left, so there's a chance for a question or a comment if somebody wants to drop one into the chat. So please go ahead and do that now. This is your last chance. Otherwise, just thank you all again. I think the future of construction is going to evolve pretty rapidly, and I think conversations like this, to the point, Rick, that you surfaced, is to connect with each other, collaborate, to share our knowledge because we cannot figure it out. Nobody can alone, right? So we all have our areas of expertise and need to make sure that we're working together to get the best end result. So I do not see anything else coming in. So with that, we'll close out for today. So thank you again. Thank you to everybody who stayed tuned with us through the entire conversation here. So thank you to our audience for coming to the conversation and engaging a little bit. We appreciate it, and stay tuned for our next conversation. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Aaron.
Well,
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
bye.